Welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Ripon Area and 5 County Tobacco Free Coalition Candidate Forum. 2 of the 4 Republican primary candidates, Luke Dretske and Gary Will, have joined us this evening. All 4 were invited to participate. However, one declined and the other never responded to our invitation. We are delighted to have 2 of the 4 candidates here tonight under challenging circumstances. Thank you for attending, and thank you for running for public office. This forum is unusual for us because there is no audience. Questions were solicited beforehand via print and social media. Thank you to those who submitted questions. The answers have been screened by League members to ensure questions may be answered by both candidates. Before we begin the program, I want to encourage everyone to vote. If you have not registered to do so, or if you need to request an absentee ballot, you may do so at the link that will be provided on the screen. It's https://myvote.wi.gov/. It will also be available on the League of Women Voters of the Ripon Area Facebook page. The link will be shown during the live viewing as well as on the taped replay. The site is tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and as such, you may use your driver's license number to register as a voter or as a means of photo identification for an absentee ballot. As the League of Women Voters begins its 2nd century, we find ourselves adapting to the same social and media challenges that we all face. We are running tonight with a skeleton crew. We would like to thank Riley Eisnagel and his team, Chris, for their dedication to bring you this information. This forum, while live, is being taped and will be replayed on the Ripon Cable YouTube channel, as well as the League Facebook and website. 5 County Tobacco Free will also distribute access to its coalition members and the public. This session will provide the voters of the 41st Assembly District information on these 2 candidates who participated, allowing voters to make informed voting decisions. The candidates have drawn for position and will present in the order drawn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks and up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Closing remarks will be limited to 1 minute. The lead will change following open remarks and through closing remarks. We will begin with Gary Will. Okay, remember, if you need me to repeat any of these, just ask. Ready?
Ready.
According to a recent Marquette Law School poll, a majority of voters in the state are in favor of what is called fair maps. Will you commit to supporting the use of a nonpartisan agency or board, such as the Legislative Reference Bureau, to carry out the job of redistricting under the 2020 census? If so, why or why not?
Do you want us to do opening first or just start with the questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to do the opening. You're right.
It's fine. It's
Do
fine.
your opening.
Okay.
Then you now know what question you're going to get.
All fine, all fine.
You get the opening. I'm sorry, Gary.
It's fine. Good evening, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum this evening. I've participated in these before, and it's always been very enjoyable to me. It's an opportunity for us to let people know who we are, and thank Luke for showing up tonight and agreeing to do this. So we have 2 of us here this evening. As Ellen said, my name's Gary Will. I live in Ripon here, transplanted here in 1997. I grew up in the Holy Land, east of Fond du Lac, worked on my uncle's farm out there, worked on semis, built houses for years. I'm the local Culligan man here. I just started 29 years last Monday. I have a wife and 2 kids. I was the mayor of Ripon here for the last 10 years. Fond du Lac County Board currently. It's just started my 5th term at the county board also, so that's in my 9th year. And really enjoyed the public service. I've always been nonpartisan. This is the first partisan office I've run for, but I'm the type of person, I'm a common sense person, problem solver, and doesn't matter to me what side people are on, as long as there's an idea or something that has some legs. I'd love to help out and get the thing running and get it across the finish line so it benefits everybody in our district. So I'm really looking forward to the idea of getting down to Madison because my experience, again, not only running a business but being the mayor here the last 10 years and on the county board, there's a lot of things that I've been involved in over the last so many years that I think could benefit, my thought process in Madison and put more tools in the toolbox is what I've been saying back home here for all of our small communities. There's a lot of programs out there, but being involved in those, being in city government, county government, I'd like to improve on those and give the opportunity for our communities to grow back here in the 41st District. So once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters this evening for having this forum and look forward to answering any questions we have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for catching my mistake. It is your turn, Luke.
Well, thank you. I first want to thank, again, the League of Women Voters for inviting myself and Gary and also the other candidates who happen to not want to be here tonight. So I want to thank Gary, of course, for being here tonight. The League of Women Voters of Ripon, League of Women Voters is actually founded by Carrie Chapman Catt here, born actually in Ripon, Wisconsin on January 9th in the 1800s. She was a big fighter for women's suffrage and for the women's movement throughout the early 1900s and actually was the head of the women's suffrage movement 2 times for 2 terms in the early 1900s. So it's kind of amazing to think that we are here at Ripon, Wisconsin, where she was born. My name's, of course, Luke Dretske. I'm actually currently the student body president here in Ripon College and also the president of the College Republicans. I was born over near Berlin, Wisconsin, and I've actually grew up there my whole life. I graduated from Berlin High School in 2017, where I was all honors, and then furthered my education at Ripon College, where I currently study politics and finance. For many of you who might be wondering, I am, yes, only 21 years old. And there's nothing wrong with being young because new ideas can seem challenging at first, but is really what we need at this time. What we have found for many years is that we keep seeing families leaving this area. They keep heading to other areas such as Appleton, Oshkosh, the Fox Valley, where cities such as Ripon and Berlin and even Green Lake and all the way over to Adams have a lot to offer. Over in Adams County, their student population has decreased by 600 students in 20 years, and it is bound to decrease by another 405. These are the things that we have to address. How do we keep our families here, our younger families here? Because ultimately, that is what it comes down to. Do we want to support our families and our communities? Again, I want to thank Gary Will for being here tonight, and I look forward to an open discussion on these questions that you have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I will repeat that first question again, and we'll start with Luke. According to a recent Marquette Law School poll, a majority of voters in the state are in favor of what is called fair maps. Will you commit to supporting the use of a nonpartisan agency or board, such as the Legislative Reference Bureau, to carry out the job of redistricting after the 2020 census? If so, why or why not?
So first off, it's always fun to hear nonpartisan because it feels like today with our dialogue that we have, we really don't see a lot of nonpartisan groups anymore. And yeah, like as you see going around the 41st Assembly District, how these lines are drawn, it's kind of amazing. I can be on one side of the street, not be in the district, and go on the other side of the street in the same city and also not be in that same district. All I want in these districts is for them to just make common sense. I mean, it should be around the same demographics, around the same educations and school districts, around the same municipalities and townships. That's all what it really has to come down to. And in terms of trying to commit to like some sort of nonpartisan agency to do it, I see that as maybe kind of a challenge to try to see how that would work because ultimately it comes down to this big partisan divide that we've been finding. But what we need to address is just keeping these districts around the same communities, not always changing them all over the place. Keep it around the same populations and demographics. And that's what I want to do in the state assembly is make sure that our districts actually make sense. They're not drawn all over the place, almost like the congressional districts over in Maryland, where they're also not like connected all over the place. They actually split up. Like those do not make sense, and we need to work to make sure that they all are built around the same area, same counties. So that's what I want to work on in the state assembly.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes, I do support it and actually voted on it at the county board. We do support that. Personally, I do. I think by doing that, it gives the citizens the best opportunity to all be engaged and involved. When they feel that there's gerrymandering in districts to fit certain people or groups, I think you get people that get maybe a little bit put off by that, and they maybe don't vote, don't get engaged, and and they just say, why should I? Because it doesn't matter anyway. So I've always been involved in nonpartisan. This is my first partisan race I'm in. And anything and everything I've ever done has never been about Gary Will. It's about the people. And so in the 41st District, we have a rural district here, which I love that I'm running for this district because this is me. And I'll do everything I can for the 41st District. And if it changes a little bit, that's fine, as long as it benefits the residents of our state. That's the goal, is by the people, for the people. So if that can be done and we can get more people engaged and involved in local politics, voting at the state level and national, presidential elections, that's what we need to do. And I think by not doing that bipartisan, you probably turn people off that we could get engaged and involved in voting. So fully support it. Thank you.
Okay, you start with this question, and I'll be slow speaking with it. Candy and fruit-flavored tobacco products and e-cigarettes are taxed at a fraction of the cigarette tax rate, making them much more affordable to teens than traditional cigarettes. They're, while being just as addictive. In fact, one Juul pod containing the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes is only taxed at 3.5 cents, compared to the $2.52 for cigarettes. What could the legislature do to keep our youth from turning to these products as an alternative to more expensive conventional cigarettes?
That's a great question, and I always say if we don't learn something every day, we're doing something wrong, and I just learned something this evening, Ellen, so thank you.
We'll learn a lot more, Gary.
Yeah, and Ellen knows me, and she knows I've been part of the coalition here in Fond du Lac County over the years and helping out, and it's very unfortunate that they are marketing to our youth like that. And I don't smoke, I don't drink, anything that impedes people's health and future growth and stuff really bothers me, and I don't think there's a need for it. Definitely, I'd certainly be looking at ways to not make it appealing to the youth. I don't think they need to be using that. There's other things they're doing with it that we probably don't even know about sitting in this room tonight. So I would be in favor of anything we can do to keep that out of our youth's hands, because it's certainly not good for them, and even the regular tobacco and stuff. It's just something that has always bothered me, and look forward to learning more about those, Ellen, as old as I am. A lot of that new stuff has come on board, and I really don't know much about it because I don't do any of it and I don't research it. But, I'll have to in the future if I get elected to 41st District here, and certainly do everything we can to protect our youth.
Luke.
Yeah, so right away, yeah, I don't vape and don't smoke, and I have a lot of people that I know from high school and college who did that, before they were of age to actually do that, and it is almost kind of a crisis that we've seen. I bet you it's almost every other person in a high school that gets these vape pens, and you have to always wonder, how do they get them? That's the real question. They're not of age to, purchase stuff, and it's marketed to them. So we need to work with everyone. We need to work with our schools, our mayors, our city councils. We need to work to ensure that they do not get into their hands. It's also not even just about maybe just vape pens, but it even goes to other stuff, such as drugs. Drugs is a big issue in all three of these major counties for Fond du Lac, Green Lake, Marquette, and even over in Adams, so 4 counties. And we keep seeing that we need to take action on this. Like just over in Marquette, I believe just a few days ago, they had a meth bus where 2 individuals were arrested for a meth lab over in the village of Marquette. So how do these people keep getting underneath our nose and we don't take action right away? That's the stuff that we have to address right away. We can't have our youth have any access to any of these, whether it's drugs or vape pens or even alcohol under those certain ages, because what we find is that it really does detriment their health and their future success in academics and careers. And we're not contributing to our community and society if we don't take care of that right away.
Thank you. Luke, we're gonna go with you on this one. This will also have a follow-up. Wisconsin is among the top 10 states in the nation for nitrate contamination, both in municipal water systems and private wells. What is your view on water contamination from agriculture, as well as the use of pesticides, not only by agriculture, but by golf courses and yard weed control?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Given that actually in the fall when I'm a student at Ripon College, I did a whole presentation and research on cyanobacteria in our lakes and how that's developed. And I do take this into strong consideration and how can we limit this, but not put a burden on our farmers and our industries, but also protect our environment. And that's what we need to do. You need to have a joint work with everyone in that industries and in those environments, working with our Green Lake Conservation Association to ensure that the Green Lake is protected, and working with the water streams and the Fox River Water Alliance to make sure that water doesn't get into the rivers. So yeah, we definitely need to address that with common sense reforms, but also not hurt our businesses. And we can do both. We have that ability, but we just have to set our foot forward. We got to take action and bring awareness to everyone in their communities that we can do this.
Gary?
Good question, and being the Culligan man, this is something that I run into, and I actually just had a phone call the other day, and so we do put RO systems in for people out in the country there to reduce the nitrates in their drinking water at their house. So, I live in Ripon, I work in Green Lake, and when I drive by the inlet over there in Green Lake, since I moved here in '97 and drive by there now, it's really sad when you look to the east on the inlet there and you see how green that is, and there's only a little bit that isn't green anymore. It looks like you could almost walk across it. I believe, it's unfortunate it wasn't done years ago, but this is a teaching moment for us. And if elected, what I'd like to do is make sure that there's more testing involved. Make sure the products that are going to be sold to the farmers and anybody else that is using pesticides, whether it be, in communities in your lawns or out in the farms, we need to test for that stuff more before it goes to market. And, we have so much more technology and testing abilities in today's day and age. I think we should be able to test more and find out the potential impact that'll have on our lakes and rivers and streams before something like that gets approved and open to the public, whether it be for, farming, industrial, commercial, or residential. It's something I've thought about over the last few weeks, and to me, that is going to be the biggest step that we could do as a state and as a nation moving forward to protect our water. Thank you.
Okay. Now, this is the follow-up question. While it's a water question, it's not the same, but they're linked. So Gary, we're going to start with you. What is your view on agricultural deep well drilling in the western part of the district? Do you agree with the actions of the current Attorney General, which has allowed the DNR to consider the cumulative effects of high-capacity wells on the water table when permitting new wells?
Okay, so I am the Culligan man, but I'm not a well guy. And, living in Ripon here and being the mayor for the last 10 years, just east of us, behind where I'm sitting here, about 8 miles, is Rosendale Dairy, and they have, I think they milk over 8,000 cows there, and I think there's probably over 12,000 head there. And what a lot of people don't understand is the amount of gallons of water a day a cow drinks. And I figured it out one day, and I believe Rosendale Dairy, just east of us, is like having another entire city of Ripon, just 8 miles east of us. So they're drawing water out of the aquifer just 8 miles away from us, the same as we are in the city of Ripon here. And so I would lean on the experts, as I do with many other things, whether it be the city here or on the county board, is lean to the experts, and I'd probably want more information, not just from the Attorney General, but more information from some of the experts that are in the well business and testing business and soil and water. So we can make a decision. I'm not about to make a decision until I cross my T's and dot my I's. So I would want to gather more information and not just take the Attorney General's word for it, and know what the impact is in our small communities back here, because I understand, the impact just being around here with the Rosendale Dairy, and I know it'll impact anybody. It's the same thing as the manure that they use, and nobody thought of this when they put this dairy in, and they'll haul that manure from behind me 8 miles, 40 miles west of here, and spread it on the fields all over the place. And so, the previous question, I guess this was a follow-up, with the lakes and waters and streams and runoffs and stuff. So we need to be more proactive in researching that stuff before we go ahead and let that stuff happen, when it's major usage like that can affect small communities.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, and I'll have to say right away that, I'm not an expert on every issue And one thing that I want to make clear is that I may not be an expert, but I think I'm an expert listener. And I want to be able to consult with people who do know about the wells. I don't have my background in water, as Gary does, but I do not have a background in wells either in relation to the high-capacity wells. And I would want to consult with people that have that background from doing it, consult with the counties over there, see the economic impact, agricultural impact, and environmental impact. And we need to consult with every single one of them. That's the only way that we can actually do stuff and get bipartisan support done to get stuff done. We need to work with every bureau that exists, every farmer, every business, small business, employees, families around those areas, because we got to ensure that they're protected and also ensure that their industries are protected and their livelihood is protected. And how do we do that? Is very simple. You gotta ask. You don't want to say yes to stuff that you don't know the answer to. But you also don't want to say no to stuff that you don't know the answer to. You have to just be honest. Tell them, I do not know what I would do exactly. But I do know people who are experts and would tell me either way otherwise. So we got to address them. We got to reach out to them. And depending on what they say, then we can come to a decision and finally take action on that stuff. So that's exactly what you have to do. You just got to consult, reach out to people, and as I said, you just got to be an expert listener. And that's how you get stuff done. You don't do it by having a closed mind on certain issues like this. You need to have an open mind with people who are experts. And that's what I'll do in the State Assembly.
Thank you, Luke. Okay, you're going to take this question. What are key initiatives that you hope to enhance or start new that address health disparities, specifically when it comes to rural areas with high poverty? We did a study on this for League, so we have a position on rural poverty. Is the solution to dwindling healthcare facilities and practitioners in rural areas something that needs to be addressed by the public or the private sector? So there's a lot going on in this question.
Sure. Yeah, and you mentioned the poverty right away. When I met with the superintendent in Adams Friendship for the school district, he told me that 70% of their students are part of poverty. And then you come a little bit more over, and in Berlin and other areas, it's around 50%. And 20 years ago would have been a lot less than that, probably around 30. And in those 20 years, we have reached a critical point that we need to address. We can't have 70% of our students on free or reduced lunch. That just should not be the case. We need to promote our economic opportunity. So I guess what I'd have to say is it had to be a public and private joint effort, because that's the way you got to accomplish it. It's not just about the healthcare field in general. It's about the economy. If we can solve the root cause of the problem, which is economic prosperity, make sure people have the opportunity to get good jobs, good paying jobs, send kids to good schools. If we can address those issues, we can address this healthcare issue, because we need to make sure that people have those resources. And so exactly, it has to be a joint effort between public and private. And that's honestly what you have to think about for a lot of our issues. Nothing should be all done by the government, because the government can't address issues as quick as the private sector. But the private sector has a lot of innovative ideas that the government does not want to use. So we need to work with both of them. That's the way you got to get this done. And the private sector continues to have bright ideas. I mean, the government probably is using computers from the early 2000s, where we have, great innovative businesses that can provide those resources, give them high-tech databases and computers so where we can actually address these issues. So yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is that it has to be public and private. It has to work together. And that's what we have to do. We have to work together, not just on this issue, but every issue.
Thank you. Want me to read it again, or you good?
I'll be all right, I think.
Okay.
Great question, and it's something that we've talked about before when I've been there at the League of Women Voters, and it's not just for the people in our state and in our counties and stuff with poverty, it's everybody. The health system really needs a lot of help, and it's something that's pretty passionate with me, because I have a job, make a pretty good income. I'm certainly not rich by any means, but I have a high deductible insurance, which is $6,500 and $12,000 out of pocket. My wife went through breast cancer 7 years ago. So, I have insurance, but I'm in the same category as the rest of them that don't have insurance, because I can't afford to use my insurance. And it's really sad and unfortunate, that the company pays for insurance and I still pay on top of it out of my pocket for my insurance. And there's so many things that, my own family could utilize, that I know the people that they're in poverty situations across the state are in the same situation I'm in. And so we need to address that. We need to look at that, and, with businesses, not only for the private sector in the medical industry, but it's the businesses in our districts. That is, the cost of that is hurting them also. And if that hurts them, that hurts their business overall, and hiring more people so they can give more people a job in the American dream of owning a house and moving forward. So it's something that has bothered me a lot. And the second part to that question a little bit was, studies have shown that, especially in Wisconsin and northern counties, that in 5, 10, 20 years, there's going to be a lot of outlets that are no longer going to be available for people to go and get medical care, because they'll have to drive sometimes an hour, hour and a half. And if we don't start looking at that and addressing that sooner versus later, there'll be people that have to drive a long time before they can actually get access to care. I myself have used Doc Willett in Green Lake the last few years, and it's a cash business there. He's a doctor that's probably should be retired and enjoying life, but he's providing a service to our community, and those that can't afford or don't have insurance. And I myself worry someday when he's going to be gone, what I'm going to do when I need help. Sorry.
Ooh. Okay, this is a question, we're going to learn something tonight.
Oh.
As we all did last night screening. So I'm going to give you the definition of rebuttable presumption first, okay? It is an assumption made by a court that is taken to be true unless someone comes forward to contest it and prove otherwise. For example, a defendant in a criminal case is presumed innocent until proven guilty, okay? This is the question, and Gary, you're going to start with it. Would you support a bill regarding family law that creates a rebuttable presumption that equalizes physical placement to the highest degree between parents in an action affecting the family that is in the child's best interest?
So it would determine the placement of a child, the court would, and the ability for additional information to be shared before the result.
It's asking, the question is asking that the standard be, the assumption be that placement would be equal.
X. Okay.
Equal.
Equal.
Between father and mother, between spouse,
Parents.
between parents.
Parents.
That would be the rebuttable presumption.
Yes.
That we don't, right now the rebuttable presumption is that mothers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm on the AdvoCap board also, and we had programs through AdvoCap, for fathers, and because of the cuts in state aid and stuff, the unfortunate thing is a lot of those programs have been cut out, and so there needs to be equal say from both parents, no matter what, if something happens for the children. It's whatever's in the best interest of the children. We have to take and separate any other issues that are there, that may be there, and take the advice and information that we can garner and make the best decision for the family and children involved. So parents have equal rights and opportunities.
So would you support a bill?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just, Luke, your turn.
Yeah, and I actually had this conversation with Ripon man. We had a conversation for about 45 minutes discussing this.
Oh.
And he mentioned how he didn't have that ability to see his child every once in a while, like not even once a week. It was probably once every other week. And it wasn't because of his background or anything. It's just that's because that's what happened in the case. When you get some, divorces, separation, some things can get a little, getting some big disagreements between the parents. But he is a great father man. He got that reverse where he can actually have that access to his child more. And that's what I have found is that having two parents, even if they are separated, having them together, cooperating to make sure their child has a better life, you can't replace that. There's no amount of money you can put to replace that. Two parents supporting their child every day in their things they do, supporting at sporting events, even though whether the parents are now separated, goes a long way for that kid. I can speak from that just from friends who have faced that same experience, And have to agree with the Mayor Will on this too, that I would support the bill 100% because we need those parents to have access to their children. So.
Okay, now we're all over the board with questions. So, Luke, you're going to start with this one. The lack of broadband access in rural communities has been identified for years, in my case, decades, as a critical need, yet the legislature has not come up with any solutions. If elected, how would you address this need? And do you have a plan for enhanced broadband in rural areas?
That's a great question, just given that actually yesterday on my website I put up a map of broadband access for Wisconsin. So if you go to lukedretske.com, you can find it, and you can click on the map, and it will show you the coverage and the broadband access in those areas. So speaking of some of the counties, Adams County has very limited access. About 50% of people have broadband access, just based on like 25 plus gigabytes. And then if you go so on from 100 plus and even 1 gigabyte, then no access at all. So my plan for how we can address this is similar to how we got electricity in every home. There's a bill, I believe, in the early 1930s where they worked to get electricity in every home because there's only 15% of families that had electricity at the time. And by the end of the 1930s, I believe, it went almost up to 99%. And that's what we have to do with broadband. We have to address it head on because as we're seeing now during this whole pandemic, will you be able to, have a job in Milwaukee and work from home and go down there maybe once a week or once every other week? I think we're going to see that. We can market that for our communities because who wouldn't want to live and have a nice home up in this rural area for, $150,000, $120,000, and you can take care of your home, put your kids in good schools, and not have to live in the big city where a house can cost $600,000, $700,000, even up to $1 million. Broadband access, what you have to do is exactly what they did for electricity. We have to get in those people's houses, provide those resources to get them in. And that would be one of my first things to do because when I talked to superintendent over in Montello, she described to me that 25% of students during this whole thing didn't have strong access to any internet. So she had to address this individually, reach out to those students. She had to drop off packets every week for some students and to coordinate with the teachers. And it's amazing to find that we're in the 21st century and we don't have that ability to connect everyone to that. So that's what we need. We need to address these 24th century problems with 24th century ideas.
Thank you. Gary.
It's a great question, especially for the district that Luke and I are running for, because of the dead spots out there and the rural nature of our district that we're in. Some of these districts are in high population areas, and it's not an issue there. The unfortunate thing is the private sector doesn't reach out to all of them, and the reason they don't reach out to all of them is because there's not enough population there to make it worthwhile. And that's where you need the public-private partnership to be engaged and involved. And a lot of people sometimes don't like the word of public-private partnerships, but this is a situation, a classic example, I think, where you need to have that public-private partnership. And I don't believe it's a one-size-fit-all because every area in our state is different. The population is different, the topography is different, and that's where the state can actually help out the private partner or public-private partnerships. And what maybe works in Fond du Lac County doesn't work in Adams County and doesn't work in Juneau County and doesn't work in Columbia County. So, if looking at it as a one-size-fits-all and coming up with a bill and passing it through the state, it's still, I think, going to leave counties with a deficit out there just because of the population and the topography and stuff out there where you might need to help, a county up north a little bit more than a county down in the southeastern part of the state with some type of a package or benefit that you could help out the private entity to help provide that broadband access out there. So I would hate for the state to move forward with something that they think is a fix and a one-size-fit-all, because I don't think that'll work either. It needs to be something that you can massage with the area that you're looking with and dealing with, so we don't leave anybody left out. It's great to have good intentions and do something, but when it's done, and I've seen this before with my experience and stuff, that we're only human, we can't think of everything, but we got to try to think of everything we can as humanly possible before we try to finalize a bill and move forward and hope that we don't leave anybody out.
Okay, you get this next question, and this is a perennial public favorite question. Should marijuana for medical purposes be legalized in Wisconsin? Why or why not?
Okay, the key word you just said, Ellen, was medical purposes. And there again, we had this question come up last fall at our county board, and I actually made another one of my supervisor peers made a motion, and I second the motion. We send this back to committee, and my recommendation at that time, it still is now, and still will be if I'm elected to the 41st Assembly District. I want to know from all of the experts first before I make a decision. I want to know from our local health departments. I want to know from our state health department. I want to know from the doctors. I want to know from our police, fire, and EMS in the things they deal with out there. Because I'm Gary Will. I'm a Culligan man right now. If I'm a state assemblyman, I'm still Gary Will, and I'm not one of the professionals I just mentioned. And I'll lean on their advice and cross the T's and dot the I's. The only thing I would support moving forward would be something that would be medical and medical only with a doctor's signature, and only if all the experts are telling me that that is something that could be beneficial, and it's maybe one of the last resorts to help somebody with the situation they're dealing with in their life at that time. Otherwise, I don't support anything else to do with marijuana, whether it be recreational or people talk about the money. There's a lot of other things you can do also. If it's talking about the money, it's not about the money. It's about our communities. When we talked about this at the county board last year, I think it was about a month and a half after I seen on Fox 11 News, there was a car sideways, it was a ranch house, in the end of the house up in Green Bay, stuck in the wall between the attic and the first floor. And the guy was high on marijuana in the middle of the night. So it's dangerous, I believe. I've never done it. I won't ever do it. I can't be putting the rest of the public at risk. I would only entertain it as the question is stated. That's why I said the key word was medical. Only after all the experts and advice and information is given could I make a decision with also input from the public.
Thank you, Gary. Luke?
Yeah, so I'll have to say right away, being 21 years old, and apparently my generation's the one that really wants to legalize this recreational use of marijuana, so I guess
But that's not the question.
Yeah, I know. But I have to say for the rarity, I am not for that at all. And as Gary's pointed out, the key word is medical marijuana. And yeah, what we have to do is we have to do our research. We have to look into it more in depth. We have to know what can we do and what shouldn't we do, because we want to make sure that if for some reason we just want to go towards some sort of method of medical marijuana, you want to make sure it can't get out into your communities. And that's the one scare that I think I have and many others around me have, is that how come we still protect our communities and also try to provide some care to some people. So therefore, I've been getting asked from one of the marijuana lobbyists trying to get me to say whether or not how I stand on marijuana and marijuana reform. And I kept saying the same answer, that I am against, and I will keep asking questions on marijuana reform, because as others were saying, we have to keep it out of our communities. We have to know the details. We have to know the information before we vote on it, not just because you like to do it and stuff like that. It is very dangerous, just like drinking and driving is very dangerous, and we shouldn't have that same issue with marijuana. So therefore, I would have to, of course, look more into it, but initially I'm against any sort of really reform of medical marijuana.
Okay. Now, this next question is going to be one of these sort of big behemoth things. So if you need me to repeat it or break it down, let me know. Should taxpayer funds be set aside for public schools be diverted to private schools via vouchers? That's the first part. If, then why or why not? Then would you support and advocate putting the cost of voucher schools on the yearly property tax bills when they are set out?
Okay, so what I have to say right away is from the vouchers from public schools for private schools, I'd have to look more information on to that. Just speaking in general on just a school issue, I have to
What's school choice right now?
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah, so and that's what I'm going to address is in our district, in our communities, it is public schools that take in all the students and support the students. And it's the public schools that work really hard to ensure that our students have the right education. And I have a whole bunch of friends now who are now teachers, and I know they're committed to their students. My actually girlfriend, she's probably not going to like this, and I'm saying this right now as she's watching, but she's going to be a teacher, and I know she'll be a great teacher, and there's many just like her who will be great teachers. And in this area, we need to support our public schools, but our schools need to do some changes. We need to reform them a little bit. We want to make sure that our students are meeting all expectations. I was actually just reading the reports from 2018 to 2019 on the grade reports for the schools, and based on their diversity and poverty rates. And I want to address how we can make sure that all of our schools meet well beyond our expectations. And that's what we have to keep looking at doing. And I'm not quite sure whether that voucher program would be the right way to address it, because in this area we have a lot of public schools and we have great public school teachers, but we want to make sure we have all good public schools teachers. And how do we hold teachers accountable in that way, and how do we make sure that we address that parents can trust sending their students to schools knowing that they will learn the skills that they will need to get once they get out of high school, that they can go into the workforce, contribute to their community, and raise a family. And that's what we have to address.
Gary?
I didn't quite hear the second part of the question, so if you want to just read the whole question again, then that's fine.
Should taxpayer funds be set aside for public schools be diverted to private schools via vouchers, school choice? Okay, then that's why or why not. We're doing it right now. The follow-up question is, would you support and advocate for putting the cost of the voucher schools on the yearly property tax bills when they're set out? So that there's another line, we see on our property tax bill what we're paying in levy to the public school district. Would you be in favor of breaking that out so that we could see what amount of our taxes are supporting private schools?
Sure. Great question. Actually, I went to a Catholic school all the way through 8th grade, from kindergarten through 8th grade. And the education is key in our communities. All the issues and stuff that we're talking about, if it doesn't start at the education, then we don't go anyplace. So any opportunity we can have for our youth to get the education that their family chooses for them. When we talk about the question, states taxpayer money, and I myself, going through the Catholic school system through 8th grade, and other people that I've talked to, is they all pay the taxes. So the public tax dollars that are being used is being paid for by the people also choosing to send their kids to the private schools and use vouchers. My own mom used to pay for my sister and myself and my brother to go to a private school. It was just a Catholic school in Plymouth we went to, St. John the Baptist Catholic school. And so she pays taxes, my dad pays taxes, and they never got any benefit on sending us to school. They had to pay for it out of their pocket. And if that was what they chose, my parents at the time, or any parents in the future, moving forward, they should have the same opportunity, because they ideally are helping fund the taxpayer money to pay for those schools. And I do support putting a separate line item on the tax bill. The other discussion I've had with that is I'd like to see more of that line item on the tax bill, so the public sees on their tax bill, being the mayor in my experience here again, when the tax bills get sent out and people come in to pay, they don't understand what they're paying for. So I actually would like to see the line item separated out, not just for that, but the school, the city, the county, and the state taxes and technical, so people know and understand what they're paying for. I've learned with my experience, being here as mayor and the county board and stuff, people actually don't mind paying for stuff if they know what it's going for, if it's tangible. So if they know that they're paying X for the... Sorry.
It's okay.
I know, because this was great. I wish
It's
I could...
okay.
Sorry.
I told you these were great questions.
I know.
All right, so now we're going to do the next question. We're all over the place. So you're going to start with the next one. Do you agree with the practice of calling extraordinary sessions for the legislature? Why or why not?
It's a pretty open-ended question, because it's just extraordinary sessions. I'm going to say yes, because I don't know what the session may be. So sometimes there may be something that comes up that you really need to meet, and me being the mayor in this room, be sitting behind me for 10 years, if something comes up and you need to address it, whether it be economical or business related or community related, if there's something that is needed, and I'm elected official, I chose to do that job, I ran for that job, I don't care how many hours I sit in the room here, I'm there to help legislate and do what I can for the community. So if there's something that comes up and we need a special session for something, absolutely. I mean, I'll be there, just let me know what's up, and And if it's something that we need to do, we should be there and we should be doing it and working on it and acting on it.
Okay, Luke.
Yeah, no, I actually couldn't agree anymore. I mean, that's why we're put there. If there's an issue that we need to address immediately, and that session is called, whether it's from the leaders in the assembly or even by the governor, we should go down and address those issues if they're certainly time sensitive. I mean, right now, we should be debating police reform and addressing that issue because as we saw in the incident with Floyd, there is some reforms that need to be done, and we just need to have some common sense, and we need to address that. But we also don't want to go too far on how we address and make sure that each department can operate as they need to be. So exactly, if an extraordinary session is called and being elected in the state assembly, of course I'd go down and I would work on that issue until that issue is solved. And that's what we need. When there's a problem, we need to address the problem. We need to put out all of our ideas, have some common sense, make sure that the people know what we're discussing and not be in any sort of closed session in any mind, to make sure that people know what we're talking about so they're informed on what we're doing to ensure that we do get to the core solution that we need for every issue. So certainly I would support going down for extraordinary sessions.
Okay, so here's the follow-up. Do you agree with the practice of adjourning an extraordinary session of the legislature after 12 seconds when the governor has requested the session?
And of course, and like I was saying before, I guess it would have to come down to the issue. And of course, if it's a immediate, time-sensitive thing that we need to address, we need to address it. And it doesn't matter if the governor is Republican or Democrat. We need to be equal to both of them. Or even if it's an independent governor, we need to ensure that if they call a session and that session is some sort of problem that we need to address or it's very time-sensitive, we need to sit down. We need to have those discussions, and we should be able to address it. Not just play politics like we see every day in and out from these people who we send down there to vote for us and vote for our things that we believe in, and then just vote the party line. So exactly, we have to address that right away. And yeah, if the governor is calling stuff to play politics, and maybe not, but also if we're playing politics by going down, just adjourn in 12 seconds, we're not doing our part either. So that's what we need. We just need to, again, I need to focus on just having common sense, working with others, and not shouting each other down. That's what I'm tired of seeing and what we see in America right now. You can't even say anything to a neighbor without being scolded for what you said. And I'm tired of it, and I believe probably all of us in this room are tired of it. Everyone in this whole district is tired of it, and mainly everyone in America is tired of it. But yet we keep seeing it because no one wants to break that gap. And that's what I want to do in the assembly. Like, I have my core values of being a Republican, and I have those conservative values. But I want to have my allegiance. My one allegiance has to be to the people that I represent, not to the party leadership, not to any party, even though I have to run in a partisan election, but to my people. And that's what I want to do. I want to vote for my people. So yeah, if these sessions are called like that, I will work, and I will make sure that we address those issues immediately.
Thank you. Gary?
That's embarrassing, actually, to be honest with you. I'll lean on my experience again as elected official over so many years and sitting in this room as mayor and running a plan commission and county board. I would never call a special session unless I knew it was something that was needed and something that was going to be acted on and something that we were going to be working on. If I knew that there was something that came up and I knew there wasn't going to be support from the majority, I wouldn't be having a special session no matter what it was for. So it's going to depend on the circumstances, and if I knew firsthand before calling a special session that it wasn't going anyplace, I wouldn't do it just to stir anything up or just to prove a point. It doesn't do anybody any good. It's not by the people and for the people again. So there's probably more you can do behind the scenes and some more discussion and talking you can do before you actually go and do something like that. Just to call a session knowing what's going to happen, because I think the situation you were referring to, everybody knew what was going to happen before they were talking about before it was called. And so doing that, I think, was embarrassing and didn't do our state any good, our elected officials any good, and the residents of our state any good. So there should have been probably some more conversations and discussion prior to going that direction. That's something I would push for.
Next question you're going to begin with. What do you see as the biggest issue facing legislators in Wisconsin, and how would you address it?
I got to pick one.
Yeah, just one, because you only have 2 minutes.
Boy, there's so many, and there's so many I'm passionate about. That's it, I'm wasting.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm passionate about all of it, housing, economics, education, and I guess, lean back to education, because if we don't start with the education, how can they grow up and to be, productive to society, and how can they be, help with economic development? How can they help with housing? So, the old saying is, we're old enough, and we've all heard this before, that if we don't take care of them in school and education, we're going to deal with them in the juvenile system and then in the prison system, and that all costs us money, and it isn't good for anybody. So, probably some more with education. That ties back to your question earlier about making sure everybody has the opportunity for education. It ties back to another question with the broadband and stuff. So, knowledge is power, and the more knowledge we can give the people, and asking questions, I've said my whole life, no question is a dumb question. If you don't ask a question, you don't know. And no doesn't hurt. No just means not right now. And if somebody doesn't know the answer, we ask it and get it from somebody else. So the more information we can get and educate our kids, we probably need to look at a little bit more educating like we did years ago, so we can inform our youth and get them engaged and involved more. Because if we don't do that, everything else we talk about on a daily basis, we're going to continue to talk about the rest of our lives, because nothing will change. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke?
My whole campaign just comes down to families, but families incorporate a whole bunch of elements, as Gary was trying to address. What issue is the most important? They're all important, of course, but they all come down to families, and that's what my whole campaign is about. As I stated before, we see families leaving this area, student population decreasing. Like, as I cited, for over in Adams, it's been decreased by 600 students in 20 years. But what we have been seeing is that their population isn't decreasing, it's just their younger families are decreasing. So we see a lot of retirees, 55, 65, that age group is increasing more every year for moving up into Adams County. And so how do we get those young families in? Well, what is it? It's the core elements that we have to address: jobs, schools, and safe environment and communities. And if you can address all three of those, this is a lovely place to be, but it'll even be a greater place to live, because this area is just amazing in multiple ways. The small businesses are phenomenal. The other businesses are phenomenal. The farmers are just the hardest working backbone workers of America. We have great sheriff departments, great police departments that care about our communities. So yeah, exactly. It comes down to families and addressing those three core issues. And if we can address that, we'll be a much better, not only 41st district, but state of Wisconsin, and also America. We should be a role model for what everyone else should be doing, and we can accomplish that. And I will work to do that in the State Assembly.
Okay. I think this is going to be the last question.
We are flying by.
Yeah, and I thought
you said we had
we're
22 questions, didn't we?
Yeah, we're going to leave a lot on the table. But that's okay. And so we'll do this last question, and then we'll move for opening remarks. And you'll start with the opening remarks. Closing. Thank you, Gary. I don't know what's wrong. I'm too old to do this. Luke, this is actually going to dovetail on what you were just talking about. Our farmers have been experiencing challenges for many years. How will you support our farmers, Wisconsin agriculture, and ensure that farms do not continue to go out of business?
Yeah, that's one of the saddest things to just witness, is these family farms that have been in generations for 140, 150 years, and they have to close up their farm based on their economic circumstances. I was talking to a farmer between Green Lake and Burl on that that issue. And yeah, it's something that I'm not going to lie, I'm not a farmer. I could tell you that my grandpa and his siblings were all farm kids and stuff, and they worked really hard, but I don't have that background. But as I said before, I want to listen. I want to listen to the farmers. How can we help them ensure that they can keep their livelihood that they have worked for and their family has worked for for generations and generations. And there is no one way to answer this. There's multiple different angles they have to take this. And we need to make sure that we work with every farmer and even small businesses in the industry, like this local meat markets, to ensure that we can have these products available in our local communities. Such as in Green Lake County, they produce like $31.5 million worth of milk each year. And $1.7 million of just all the agriculture goes towards our local communities. And that has a major impact on every area of our counties. And it's even more over in Fond du Lac and over in Marquette and Adams. They have a huge impact on our local communities. So yeah, as I was saying before, they are the backbone of not only the 41st District, but the state of Wisconsin and the United States of America. And we have to support them. They've worked hard for years and years. And they have the hardest work ethic, I think, ever. And I applaud them every day for what they do. And we need to support them in their way, and we need to listen to them to ensure that we can help them as much as we can to ensure that they are here for years to come.
Thank you. Gary?
Another great question, passion of mine, the farms. Actually, the last couple of days talking with the people, I commented and told people, and they're kind of surprised. I was 15 years old. My mom never fed me breakfast, lunch, or supper that year, and they looked at me like, wow. I went down, worked on a neighbor's farm, 15 years old. I was down there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get home till 10 o'clock at night. I ate every meal down there in the farm. My uncle, before I worked on that farm, then I worked on my uncle's farm before that, and towards the end when I moved over here, very sad and unfortunate situation where, he has to sell land every year just to pay his taxes every year. So if elected in the 41st Assembly District here, it's a passion of mine with the farmers, and unfortunately, our small communities, even Ripon around here, years ago, you had a lot of farms and family farms, and the farmers had kids, and the moms were there with the kids, and they would come into town and go shopping and stuff. So the additional ancillary benefits from having those small farms in our small communities benefit our small communities. And I would be a state assemblyman down there in Madison, and any farmer calls me up in the district, I'll come out there and I'll help you in the farm. I'll help you milk some cows. I'll shovel and I'll feed them, and jump in a tractor, or whatever you need to do. I've done it before. And they're the ones that know what they need. And there again, I don't believe it's a one-size-fit-all, because all farms are different sizes. So a small farmer is going to have different needs than a medium-sized farmer or a large farmer. And so getting that information from them, and even if they don't live in the district, I don't care. Somebody calls me up, if I'm available, I'll come out there and sit down and go with them and see how their operation is, and if we both are farmers here, what's affecting his farm is going to be different than what's affecting my farm. And so listen to them and see what we can do to help them out and stop losing our farms. And the other thing to that is, preserving the land, the farm land, and trying to, programs, I hear where, I think there's another bill or something out there where China is looking to buy more farmland in our country.
Okay, well, you have another minute for closing remarks, so, but, you can use it for whatever you want. I would recommend you use it to tell the voters why they should select you.
I know.
Or as the Republican candidate for the 41st Assembly District.
Am I up?
You are, because we're going to finish with Luke.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having us. A lot of great questions tonight here, and there's so many things you can look on my website too, Gary Wilfer Assembly, and my Facebook page, Gary Wilfer Assembly. And as you just heard me talk tonight, Culligan Man Water, that means a lot to me. Farms, that means a lot to me. Small businesses, small towns. Being, my experience in elected city of mayor here for 10 years and county board, there's a lot of programs and stuff out there. Housing, I used to build houses. I built houses for 5 years before I've been the Culligan Man, 29 years Culligan Man. Before that, I worked on semis, so trucking, I have a lot of passion for that. There's programs and things that are in place that I'd like to improve on for our small communities here. And my outside-the-box thinking and get-her-done attitude will serve our district and our state well. So I respectfully ask for your vote in the primary on August 11th. And anybody wants to reach out to me on my website, or you can call me on my phone, 229-0816, and I'd love to chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I want to thank right away for inviting us to be here tonight. And one thing that, of course, I want to promise to you is that, unlike some other candidates that weren't here, I will always show up to be held accountable and work for you and always listen to you, because that's what we should ask for all of our assemblymen and legislators is that we hold them accountable. We do talk to them. I want to be able to meet with every voter possible, and I want to hear what they have to say, because every single person has a unique perspective on this community and their livelihood. Yeah, I am young. I am a fighter. I will fight every second of every day. I mean, I barely even sleep at night right now, just trying to meet the voters. And that's what I'll do in the assembly. I will work really hard. I will not give up on an issue. If it's the right thing to do, and even party leadership is trying to knock it down, I will fight against them. Because I want to ensure that we do what's right, not do what's politically right, but just do what's right. That's what we need. As I was saying before, people are tired of this division that we have. And I want to end that. I just want to do what's right for the state of Wisconsin, our district, and our communities. And I thank you again for being here tonight and inviting me, and I thank Gary Will for being here too.
Thank you. Thank you both, and my apologies for my confusion on opening and closing remarks. I want to remind our audience that the partisan primary election is Tuesday, August 11th. You choose a party and you vote in the party. And we will see everyone here next Wednesday for the 6th Congressional Democratic Primary Forum. So thank you both, and good luck to both of you.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.